says, "Hey, John, Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns are scheduled to appear in the Street Fighter movie soon. How will this affect WWE? Their roster's so loaded right now. I think Jim Cornette always used to say, how can I miss you if you never go away? So I like that idea of giving them a break. Is there a bad thing? Is there any negative to them being off TV? I mean, this is just good PR, right?
I think it's just good PR. And you got to understand, I mean, Roman has headlined more WrestleManias than I guess anybody in history. I guess he broke Hogan's record by one or two already. And so you've got a guy that you need to find something for them to do. It's good to give him a break. Cody was there every single day for several years. I mean, that's an incredible load and a lot of exposure. And to take them off TV for a while, that's a good thing. That's a good thing for big stars. When you don't have that luxury a lot of times. When a guy gets hot a lot of times in a territory, you can't take that person off TV. You couldn't take Tommy Wildfire Rich off TV because you're territory creators, even though he had a lot of great talent around him. They got so much talent that they can fill the void and let these guys go off and do a movie, and that movie comes out, and these guys will probably come back bigger stars than ever.
Well, somebody that is hoping to come back a bigger star than ever. Allegedly, the rumor and innuendo is that Chris Jericho is eyeballing a return to WWE. It certainly feels as if he's out of dates with AEW. Again, I have no inside information, but I did see that he popped up on a European independent over the weekend, but he was not at the AEW pay-per-view. And there's been lots of speculation where people are talking like it's a foregone conclusion that he shows up at the Royal Rumble. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I have no inside information. I don't know when his contract expires, but a lot of people are picking up on the fact that Jericho has personally liked posts on social media whenever there's speculation that he may be returning to a WWE landscape. And WWE seemingly having some fun with this because on their YouTube channel, they've just started randomly uploading Chris Jericho moments. I love that we've got the rumor and innuendo here working in our favor. What do you think? Will we see Chris Jericho retire and go into the Hall of Fame in WWE?
I hope so. Yeah, because he made such a big name there, and he was the first champion. All of a sudden, beat Rock and Stone Cold the same night. He came in. I remember seeing him back in the early '90s. I was over working for Tenryu. It was my first big time step up in a Japanese company. They were doing the junior heavyweight tournament there, and Chris was part of that when he was younger. I remember seeing him then and thinking, man, if this guy lives, he's going to be fantastic. And I say that because they were doing so much crazy stuff at the time. It was wild what they were doing. And he just been everywhere he's been a massive star. And, I don't know if this negotiation, if he's not coming in, this is a great negotiation for whatever he's doing. So it's smart. Chris is obviously a very smart guy. All the stuff that he's done outside of the business. I hope he does, mainly because I watch a lot more WWE than I watch anything else, and I'd love to be able to see him.
It is interesting to think about what potential matchups exist. As a wrestler, is there anybody on the WWE roster that you look at and you think, oh, I'd like to see him and Chris? Because I heard some speculation that he might be the perfect guy to do some celebrity integrations. The next time we have someone like a Bad Bunny or like a Travis Scott, okay, maybe that's not the best example, but you get where I'm going. If we have a Jelly Roll type person there, I mean, Chris Jericho has the name value to pull that off, and obviously he knows what to do, but what matchups, if anything, intrigues you about Jericho and WWE?
When he did a celebrity interaction with Mickey Rourke, and Mickey brought a bunch of security with him because he didn't realize Chris was working. So, come on. Yeah.
Hey, tell us about that. We haven't spent any time talking about that. In case you're not familiar, years ago, this was around the release of the movie The Wrestler. Mickey Rourke had gotten a big boost to his career from that. And, of course, they thought, well, here's a natural opportunity to do a tie-in at WrestleMania. And maybe he got cold feet. Maybe he was concerned he might get embarrassed. Even though Mickey had a boxing background, he brought Ken Shamrock's adopted brother, Frank Shamrock, to sit ringside.
Yeah.
Well, take us back to that. How silly was all that with the benefit?
He had Frank and he had another MMA fighter, I believe, there with him, because he thought Chris was shooting, I guess. He didn't know what the term was. Obviously was not working. Didn't know what that term was either, I don't guess. And even though he did a wrestler movie on Larry King Live, he thought the whole thing with Chris was legit and wanted to fight him. And so he brought these MMA fighters with him I guess in case they got into this big fight. backstage or in the ring or something crazy. I don't know. It was nuts. I mean, it was, here's a guy who played a wrestler in a movie who obviously knows about sports entertainment and still didn't understand it was a work and brought these guys because he was worried about him and Chris getting into a fight. And I guess Chris beating him up.
It is going to be interesting to see how they use Chris Jericho. If the rumors are true that he's coming back again, we don't know. It's all just speculation.
Hey, by the way, have you ever talked to Mickey Rourke?
No, I've never met him.
He's kind of like the Iraqi reporter that used to have when they had the delay. When you'd hear, you'd sit there and you'd ask him a question and they would stand there and just look at the camera uncomfortably long and then answer. That's how kind of Mickey Rourke would answer questions. It was there's a delay.
There's an old wrestler who's like that too, but I won't. After, but I'm not going to do it on the show.
Mickey's had a very fun life. He wears the results.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about this past weekend. I don't know if you saw, but AEW presented their Forbidden Door pay-per-view. Obviously, that term means a little, well, it's different now. I mean, now you see on the WWE side of things, they're working with TNA and they're working with AAA and they've got an ID program with GCW, but that's not always been the case. So for years and years, this was a big deal because you saw New Japan and AEW work together. Now we've got the inclusion of CMLL and Stardom. I love the idea that all of these promotions are now working together. And I get that AEW and WWE aren't, but just the idea that there's almost like teams or clusters or organizations. It's almost like there's an AFC and an NFC. I wish it was always like this. Don't you, John?
Yeah, I do too. We couldn't be like that back in the day because these guys actually were in competition, and they're not anymore, and now there's the wrestling business is so big. And I mean that in not just that these companies aren't big like they used to be. They are, but now the wrestling business is truly global. And so you have a much bigger market than you had back then. And, you couldn't have certain companies working with others because they literally were fighting for the same TV time. They were fighting for the same wrestlers. They were fighting for the same everything. It was legit competition back then. And now you don't see that because the market is now a global market. And so there's really not competition between these companies as far as, these companies fighting each other. And, obviously nobody's competition for the WWE. They're so big.
I'm curious. I know you were traveling over the weekend. Did you get a chance to see any of the AEW pay-per-view?
No, I didn't. I was traveling over the weekend and was down in Texas on Saturday night doing a show down there with Ron Simmons and Pro 360.
There you go. Hey, I wanted to ask, that show was at the O2 and AEW, I guess, set an attendance record there. Over 19,000 fans were in the building, or nearly 19,000, 18,992. Of course, I love when we get to have a little bit of healthy competition. That breaks the prior record from Money in the Bank 2 years ago in 2023 at the O2. What are some of your favorite O2 experiences, if any? Because whenever I talk to JR, he talks about that building almost like it's Madison Square Garden of London.
Yeah, it is. It's a wonderful arena, and it's a very famous arena. Wrestled there in Earl's Court. It was great to be there, and it was always fun to be there because that was a big show. London. I mean, I remember back in the mid '90s, I talked to Mick McMichael, who was a referee that was so big in England, and some of the guys there, Tony St. Clair and those guys, they would tell me how many shows would run in London just 10 years previous. Talking about the mid '80s, they'd have 40 or 50 shows in London. That's how big the wrestling market is there. So that's why when you'd have a show there, it was so freaking big. I mean, it wasn't like anywhere else in Europe. Berlin was huge. Now Paris is huge. It wasn't for us because we didn't have good TV there. But you had certain cities that were special. London was by far the most special, and the O2 Arena was by far the most special arena.
SaveWithConrad.com.
My name's Rajiv. I'm in Sacramento, California. I came to Save with Conrad because I've heard Conrad talk about how he helps people all the time save money and the best route to go for getting some mortgages and finances done. And having heard so many different testimonials in the past, it made the most sense to go this route. We were in the market for a new house and we wanted to know what we could afford. So we spoke with Steve and then Diane to get through the pre-approval process to see what we could afford. And then once we were able to understand that aspect of it, that was when we were able to shop around for a house to get a mortgage through Save with Conrad. Everybody on the team was great. Everybody really explained everything fully to where it was more in like layman's terms to where I could understand it as someone not in the business or having shopped around for houses too many times. So being able to understand every step of the process and talking with everyone on the team about that was really, really helpful. And it made me feel really confident that I was going the right route. I would definitely recommend Save with Conrad to others. I know that sometimes people look at it and they go, oh, they're based in Alabama. What could they help me with? But I'm out here in California, and they were able to square everything away and get things done really quickly, as opposed to sometimes even people out here don't move as quickly as the Save with Conrad team. So everything was really well done, really efficient, and I would definitely recommend Save with Conrad to others. My name is Rajiv. I'm in Sacramento, California, and I was able to get into my dream home with SaveWithConrad.com.
Available, that's number 212 non-equal housing lender. SaveWithConrad.com.